What's up guys, Kevin Cage here with another crypto update. Hope everyone's doing well and I hope you enjoyed today's video. In the next video, we're going to dive into the Bitcoin price chart and explain why Bitcoin is the absolute focus here for the majority of alts and their charts. We'll dive into several levels I'm looking at and comparing the previous cycles to see if we're likely to rhyme with the 2016 bull run into all-time highs, or are we going to rhyme with 2019 and crash down once more. Just like previous cycles where we finally closed a full candle, the wick and body over the 50%, we've historically gone to all-time highs for the last 3 cycles. So a quick fib to look at today's price action. And as we zoom into the 50%, we can see this potentially could be the first week provided we don't crash back down, but the previous candles, all the wicks were below. We'll also discuss a few other things measuring the length of the previous cycles. And just like Raoul Paul often points out, every 4 years we have a few cycles that are coincidentally tied very close together, including the Bitcoin halving, the US election cycle, and the debt refi cycle. So we'll dive into this into detail in the next video, and if we followed history of the lengths of the previous 2 cycles, that means that an all-time high would be hit in March or July of this year. But if we measured from the all-time high price of the Bitcoin price chart rather than the high of the RSI, that would take us to March 2025. Until then, I'm just patiently waiting for Bitcoin's RSI to peer 70 because every time it's done it, it has created a new all-time high price. And still remembering last cycle for the Bitcoin price chart on the monthly, the RSI still never reached 70. During this retracement, we crashed back down once more. And historically, the biggest moves that we see for the altcoin market, and alts often have a higher rate of return than Bitcoin, is when Bitcoin is pushing into all-time highs here, here, and here. So I'm rooting for an all-time high for the Bitcoin price chart because it's lined up with the business cycle, the election cycle, the halving, and then the time and length is actually matching previous cycles. The previous cycle, we did reject the 618 and we haven't quite reached that level yet. So we have a variety of levels below. 20K CME gap, we have the fair value gaps between 30 to 34,000, a very large buy-side imbalance. We also have a fair value gap at the 702 around 53, and then a fair value gap at 60,000. So I'm still watching the trend with some internal trend lines, looking at the previous cycle where we held it the whole way up into all-time highs, and then also here where we broke down below into reaccumulation and got back above this internal trend line. And if we do see Bitcoin in the coming months close above the 702 and close this fair value gap, I'll be looking at the monthly chart and looking at that RSI as well and looking for a pierce. So we're likely going to get our answer soon and find out if we're crashing back down into reaccumulation or heading to an all-time high price. If we crash back down, I'm looking at these gaps below. If we head to an all-time high price, I'd be looking at these imbalances below for the bottom of the next cycle. Okay, let's run through some news related to XRP, HBAR, and Casper. So first up, some 2024 predictions from the VP of Global Public Policy at Ripple. A G7 country will have a blockchain-enabled CBDC by the end of 2024, and a major US retailer will accept a crypto as a form of payment, allowing Americans the ability to use blockchain-based payments for everyday purchases. And the list of G7 countries includes Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the UK, and the United States. And I guess the European Union is a non-enumerated member. Next up, we have Stuart Alderati, the Chief Legal Officer at Ripple. Before the SEC sued Ripple, Chris and Brad 3 years ago, they offered us the following settlement. The SEC would announce to the market that XRP is a security, and the market would be given a short window to come into compliance. We, or the company Ripple, said no because 1, XRP is not a security, and 2, the SEC never built a framework for crypto compliance. No matter the spin that Clayton, Hinman, Gensler, or anyone else puts on this case now, it was always about one thing, proving that XRP is not, in and of itself, a security. We put everything on the line. Few thought we would win, but we did. In the process, we exposed the SEC for the hypocritical tyrant it is, and the industry in the US lived to fight another day. Next up, by Roth Economen. So remember recently we had Ripple actually added to the Central Bank of Ireland's Virtual Asset Service Providers Register, along with XRP being added in the DIFC and Dubai's financial district to actually be used by licensed firms. Ripple's Ireland VASP license is in preparation for the MiCA or MiCA's regulations in 2024. Following the registration, Ripple will seek to provide services to clients across the European Economic Area once the markets and crypto assets regulation comes into force, at the end of 2024, subject to the acquisition of other necessary licenses. And Ripple's VASP license in Ireland includes the transfer of digital assets, exchanging between digital assets and fiat, absolutely important for ODL. We have exchanging between different forms of virtual assets or digital assets, so could the liquidity hub or AMM play a role, and also providing custodian wallets. And this reminds me of the HELOC or the home equity line of credit and lending and settlement with CBDCs. Because Ripple, being partnered with Fubon Bank, we're actually designing a HELOC or home equity line of credit. and this is a pilot designed to streamline access to excess property equity for Hong Kong citizens. So all types of digital assets, including tokenized assets and other virtual assets, come into play. And what we're seeing regarding stablecoins is a big deal because we have countries like Singapore and China actually transacting in stablecoins and slowly migrating away from the US dollar. And that's a huge threat to the United States and the US dollar. We also have Birath Economin, an absolute must follow. It's intriguing that Ripple, the company, claims US exchanges only represent 5% of the global XRP sales. From what I gather, US exchanges comprise of around 15 to 20% of the global ETH or Ethereum volume. Seems a strong indication the SEC has made XRP more desirable outside of the US. And this is in the Q3 markets report for XRP if you're curious. And on XRP Scan on December 30th, the XRP ledger processed an all-time high 6.8 million transactions in a single day. The previous record was around 5 million transactions back in November of 2021. Next up, we had some big news. On January 5th, Grayscale has re-included XRP into its fund. So they've added XRP back as a component asset in the Grayscale Digital Large Cap Fund, GDLC. And this is on Nasdaq's website. In an official statement, the asset manager noted that it has now allocated about $9.6 million or 2.5% of its $378 million GDLC fund toward XRP. So if you go to grayscale.com, you can look up this GDLC fund and you can scroll down and look at the current assets and performance. And it's good to see XRP in this list again, only 2.5%. They have almost 70% in Bitcoin and over 20% in ETH, along with Solana, ADA, and AVAX. So many people are speculating with the Bitcoin spot ETF being approved in the future. When that happens, BTC likely sees a nice pump during that time or before that. And then it would be likely that a lot of large investors from Bitcoin would be looking at Ethereum or other top assets. I think it's important to stay skeptical. I'm not buying Bitcoin at 40,000. I'm not buying assets that are up 5 to 10x already. The last time I did a big buy was a really long time ago, so I'm not buying any alts that are already pumping. I'm just holding my positions and waiting for a bull run. And we're going to see if these stats and estimates are pure BS or if they actually become a reality. The growing institutional crypto custody market expected to reach $10 trillion by 2030. And then of course the SWIFT estimates and then BCG for tokenization estimates reaching 16 trillion by 2030. Okay, a few things I'm looking at for Casper, and if you caught the last video, I added some updated information to the video description and the pinned comment related to the inscriptions. So we know a while back we had Casper Labs, IBM, and Gartner have a webinar going over AI and announcing IBM's new platform called watsonx. This is their AI and big data platform. I highly recommend watching this full video if you're interested in Casper, and they also highlight why they chose Casper Network and why they're using it for AI governance for watsonx. And during this webinar, the CEO of Casper Labs also mentioned there are 2 to 3 other large projects that IBM and Casper Labs are working on, similar to the size of IPWE. So we have the Hub Davos taking place next week. I'm looking forward to getting any updates on new projects. And I also found some recent contracts just scrolling through CSPR.live and looking at their testnet. So I shared the link in this post, and this is the Sports Advantage Inception NFT contract CEP78. So per the previous video where we had clips of the interview, they expect this to be on mainnet by March. And this will be a blockchain-based system for advertisers being implemented for the racing series, starting with the Porsche series that begins in March. I also found a recent contract created by Nucleus Finance on Casper's testnet as well. So we can see Nucleus Finance minting different NFTs and then setting the token metadata, and the metadata is upgradable versus other chains. And remember that Casper Network is working with Actis, one of the big financial standards. And if you scroll down on their website, you can see their sponsors include Casper and Nucleus Finance. Now Ethereum and Cardano are also working or have worked in the past with Actis as well. And you can learn more at nucleusfinance.com to better understand what Nucleus Finance is actually doing and why they're working with Casper as their L1 partner. And even the CEO Sanjay of Nucleus Finance says that the financial contract market is a $50 trillion market. So tokenizing this information and leveraging smart financial contracts is a really big deal. It's a huge use case, but it takes a lot of time to develop. If any of these organizations or public crypto networks in the top 100, 200 are successful, this is a multi-trillion-dollar market to tap into. And side note, we have shared by Dread Bongo, Barry Silbert, the founder and CEO of DCG Digital Currency Group, that's an investor in a variety of projects and the parent company of Grayscale. Just like Dredd says, it does look like he's pushing Tower BitTensor in his bio right there with that logo. Next up, for Hedera and their native token HBAR. So they just presented at the International Conference on Distributed Computing and Networking on Hashgraph. And we can see patches highlighting HCS20 on Hedera with over 3 million transactions. So just like Bitcoin in 2023 with ordinals, basically NFTs on Bitcoin, and these ordinals create a sequence. So you have a sequence and you can number every single Satoshi or the smallest unit of Bitcoin. And from there you can create inscriptions and add text, image, any type of information to the smallest unit of Bitcoin called an inscription. So we've recently seen Casper do this and now Hedera as well, an auditable point standard utilizing Hedera. Inspired by BRC20 on Bitcoin, but this leverages the Hedera Consensus Service HCS to document the deploy, mint, transfer, and burn of HCS 20s. So Patches has an amazing thread right here, all linked and sourced, and also linked right to the GitHub going over HCS 20. And considering the bulk of the transactions on Hedera's mainnet with well over 30 billion transactions are HCS, this is a big deal and it could be a big use case. Ideal for applications needing transparency, audits for point management, or users wanting to inscribe on Hedera. So HCS 20 is the standard, just like Bitcoin standard BRC 20, and instead of ordinals, we're calling them hashinals. Now Hedera is extremely efficient, and per inscription, this is how cheap it is because it's pegged to the US dollar. Look at this, 0.0001. So extremely efficient with very high TPS potential. So right away I'm thinking of the atma.io use case where they're already tracking well over 20 billion items and they're connected to Hedera and their consensus service with DIDs or decentralized identities. So HCS 20 has a private mode and a public mode. And HCS 20 ensures transactions are valid based on balance availability through consensus timestamp order indexing. So we know DeFi took off a few years ago, we had NFT have its big hype cycle, and we're seeing new use cases being developed, ZK proofs, tokenization of real-world assets, other scaling solutions, and now we have ordinals or just inscriptions on all of these chains, and we haven't really seen any major use cases being developed, but they're being explored. We have dozens of things that we could cover for Hedera. There have been so many announcements and developments recently, so we'll cover them in future videos. We'll finish up with this. On hedera.com/Davos 2024, Hedera is going to be at Davos. So coming up in just over a week from today, we can see the high-level agenda and then all the speakers and moderators representing Hedera, DLA, Piper, and a bunch of organizations. Huge thanks to all that hit the like button, and I'll catch you in the next one. If you enjoyed this video, I'd greatly appreciate if you could hit the like button, let me know your thoughts down below, and my link tree is linked in the top of this YouTube video description, with all links, crypto resources, and discounts. I'll catch you in the next one.